Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for joining me. Glad you are here because we have a great episode, first episode back from our little break where we gave you mini episodes. We have a great guest today. It is Wayne Fetterman, an actor, a comedian, an author, a producer, a writer. He has done so much. You have definitely seen him a ton of times, like so many times, whether that was him doing stand-up or him on a sitcom or in a movie. He's a guy who comes in, nails a scene, and he's out. It's a really great talk covering a ton of different things. And we also talk about his book, The History of Stand-Up, from Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle. Why don't we just get right to it? Here's my chat with Wayne Fetterman. I know you performed a lot in high school. You were in a band, you did broadcasting.
How do you know this? How is this through Wikipedia, through other interviews? Like, how do you, the dark web, where do you get this information?
A couple of other interviews and the dark web.
Okay.
I had to pay a lot in cryptocurrency.
Right. I assume Bitcoin is how you pay in that world? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I had to find out what it was, acquire some, and then pay people for it.
Transfer it.
Yeah. And I don't even know how to do it again. So, but you did ventriloquism in high school.
That is true.
How old were you when you started doing that?
About 14.
Okay. And I'm wondering if that is what brought you into loving comedy, or is there something before that that made you love comedy and then that took you into ventriloquism?
No, I mean, I don't know, loving comedy. I was always fascinated by show business. I think I was like the youngest in my family for a while. And then my mom had two other children with a different dad. And so I was like, the classic. I just think looking back, it just seemed like I needed a lot of more attention than the normal kid. So I always gravitated to any kind of like being in a play, playing drums. There's drums behind me right now. Playing drums in like the school band, and I just liked performing, and I just had a knack for making people laugh, even at an early age. Yeah, at an early age, I was just one of those kids. So, but I wasn't a disruptive kid. I was a pretty good student, and then when I was like really into comedy. I was into comedy before I did ventriloquism. Definitely, I'd listen to stand-ups and stuff like that, and then I discovered this ventriloquist named Edgar Bergen because I was into, and so he was a ventriloquist on the radio. This is before television, which is the craziest job, obviously, in the history of show business. Like a juggler on the radio. It makes no sense.
Right.
But he was so funny and so great, and just a huge radio star, starting in the late 30s, probably 38, I think he really hit that show. And so that got me into studying old radio comedians. And then I think I wanted to do stand-up. I don't know if I had the guts to do it. And I just thought ventriloquism was like, oh, this is like a tricky way to get into it. So maybe
you get to do a character, and you as yourself is not really the focal point in a sort of magical sort of like a magician sort of move there to deflect and get everyone to pay attention to the dummy and not you.
100%. Magic and ventriloquism, they're definitely cousins or brothers or relatives. No question about that. But I will say one of the things that encouraged me right away as a youngster when I started doing ventriloquism, 14, 15, was I used some old Edgar Bergen bits that I did, and then I wrote some bits. Didn't work them out on stage, just wrote them out and did them, and they worked pretty well right out of the gate. So I was like, oh, maybe I have an aptitude for writing this stuff as well as performing. So that was like encouraged. So it was all encouraging to the point that I don't want to brag, but I performed at my senior prom. But
nice.
Yeah.
And you did have a date other than the dummy at the prom.
Yes, Stacy.
Okay.
It was Buford, Stacy, and Wayne. The three of us went to the prom.
Oh, sweet.
Unfortunately for Stacy, she had to deal with the guy with the dummy. But
I also heard that you did broadcasting when you were in high school.
Yeah, but that's that. Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, I don't know where you're getting this information. That is true, but it was limited. I just did sports reporting for my high school sports team. So I would call into the radio station. It wasn't anything crazy, and just tell them the scores of the game.
That's cool though, and it
was
gumption that you were an initiative that you were taking.
Well, it was I mean, I get gumption. I'm not sure, but yeah, there was. This is one thing I remember from that was that they were very adamant that I think it was. God, I don't want to say WWOK was the things, but I might be wrong about that. But they were adamant that you said W, not W. That's just something I remember. Like if you're going to be on the radio, no one says W. They say W. You got to say the L.
Yeah,
little tip.
That
a little
is
tip
one of
for you
those
guys.
things there about radio because I was in radio for a little bit, and there are.
Did you have that also?
I don't remember them necessarily with that word doing that, but I do remember when I had to read ads when I was a traffic reporter, how some company that deals with realty was very adamant that we say realtor and not realtor. Which
so less to take. So people add an extra syllable. They say realtor.
I think in the South, 'cause that's where I'm from. I think.
Where are you from? I don't know anything about it. Let's find out a little about you. Enough about Wayne. This is boring to me. Where in the South? Because I'm from Florida, so that's also South.
I'm from South Carolina and North Carolina.
Yeah.
But I mostly lived in South Carolina, and that was when I started doing. It was in South Carolina as an adult that I started doing radio. But I was fascinated about those sort of things as a kid too, about broadcasting, and my brother and I were just nerds about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And for me, broadcasting was one of them, even though I loved comedy and was getting into that. And also as a teenager wanted to be a stand-up, but didn't have the guts nor the means, in all honesty, to try to make a go at it. So, I wish I had some opportunities to perform.
Wait a minute. Let's go back. So did you go to like a high school or anything like that?
Yeah.
Did you attend high school? Okay. So was there any kind of opportunity for a talent show or anything like that you could have done stand-up?
There weren't things like that for stand-up. I just don't remember seeing any opportunities then. There would be now because there are open mics around town, but there were not any in my
No, I
town.
meant specifically in high school. Like that's what I did.
We had the theater. But
Okay.
as far as, like solo performing, there were just no opportunity. I don't remember anything about talent shows or anything.
No talent shows at your school.
I don't think
Interesting.
so. I really don't think so.
Okay.
And I don't even remember, maybe I saw in the yearbook there were some kids who had a band, but I don't even remember much talk about that just being around school. I just saw a picture in the yearbook about like these guys in their garage band, but I don't know where they were playing. Okay. So it's a very normal thing for high schoolers to have a band. It's a garage band, and that as you did as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I played in a band, but not. It was more for wedding. Well, wedding. It was like a wedding band. It wasn't for like. It wasn't like Battle of the Bands. We just played old standards and stuff like that.
So cool, though. I mean, you're getting that's real chops that you were getting.
Yeah.
As a teenager.
Hmm. But I think I was a little more focused on this than you were, because I was
Yeah.
like any opportunity for me to perform, I would be like even the senior prom thing.
Hmm.
I remember I went to Jean Forsberg. I'll never forget her name. She was the teacher, Mrs. Forsberg, who was the in in head of like the whole, I don't know, prom committee or something like
Hmm.
that. And I said, "Can I do a set? Can I perform at the senior prom?" And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah," because she had already seen me at the talent show, and she
Oh,
saw me
okay.
at something at the. I don't know if you had this in your high school. I'm just curious the way high schools. Again, I went to high school in the '70s. You probably went in the
90s.
early 2000s or
No, in the
'90s.
90s. Yeah, late
In
90s.
the '90s. Okay, so 20 years later, after I did, and she, we had something called Calendar Girl. Did you have that at your high school?
No, no. I heard about such things.
Yeah, so that was like a tad like the hottest girls got to be like Miss January, Miss
Right.
February, you know what I mean? Like the cheerleaders and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So we had a big like calendar girl night, and so I performed that calendar girl.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
When
So
I was in elementary school at
yeah.
summer camp, I did a talent show, but I was a
Oh,
little kid and
right.
did do stand up at it. Um,
Jesus.
and there was 2 years in elementary, fourth and fifth grade. I asked the teacher if I could do a bit because that was when I got into SNL,
Hmm.
primarily Weekend Update, and I would ask the teacher if I could do material, and I just had written some Weekend Update type like news jokes
Hmm.
and did those in fourth and fifth grade. But I didn't take that initiative. I think just in high school, I wanted to get out of high school. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I really bloomed when I got to college. That was when I
I
started
gotcha. I
doing this
gotcha.
stuff.
I gotcha. Yeah, I like to say that I peaked in middle school. That was my height for me. But
But
yeah,
it's
no,
so
I got
untrue.
that was so
You- yeah, you have done so much after that.
yeah.
Speaking of great things when you were in school, you went to NYU and you studied acting under
Hmm.
Stella Adler.
With her, yes, with I was
Yeah.
the last class where she would teach like from the like beginning acting right through. Yeah.
Wow.
Then she had a very famous class called script interpretation.
Hmm.
She would talk about, she'd take a Chekhov script and she'd break it down. It was
Hmm.
just like there were celebrities in the class. It was like a big thing. But I had like acting 101 with her.
Wow.
And yeah, it was quite intimidating.
Yeah, I bet. I
Yeah.
bet. Was it something I mean, obviously she was a big name, so you'd heard of her, but did it
Hmm.
become intimidating as the classes went on, or did you go in intimidated by her?
No, went in exciting, and it
Hmm.
was, very formalized. When she walked in the room, the whole class had to stand up
Oh, wow.
until she sat down, and then we sat down. It was, yeah, it was intense. It was like old school
Yeah.
group theater stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I was a goofy guy, so I was into like comedy plays and stuff like that in high school. I mean, at NYU. So I think a little of what she was teaching was lost on me just because I was more into Neil Simon than I
Yeah.
was into, Tennessee Williams.
Right.
But it was incredible experience, and I looking back, I always feel, and this would be under my advice thing, that as important as working with Stella was and for inspiring me and focusing me, but I loved like who I met, like my classmates, like they were important to me as well as just people I've known, friendships I've had my whole life. Not
Right.
necessarily like, oh, that girl got me a job or anything like that, but I feel like that's important to know that like the people around you are very important to your health and your career.
Yes. That's so
Yeah.
very true. And that's advice that I've heard from Seth Meyers, even. Something similar. He was saying, like, get into a theater and meet people because doing comedy is a tough thing. And you're going to need
Yeah.
people around you that you can
Yeah.
work with and
Yeah.
trust.
Well, I'm glad. And I agree with Seth Meyers. Yeah, great. I'm going to try to come up with one thing original on this interview that a more famous person hasn't said before me.
Oh gosh, he didn't say it on this podcast, so
Okay.
you're the first to say it on here. I know
Thank
that
God.
you.
Thank God.
So you said you already wanted to be a stand-up before you went into college. You went into the serious acting training, and I read that you wanted to be a stand-up who was a solid actor. Why was that?
I just thought it was a smart. Because I had seen other people do it. I had seen like Freddie Prinze did that, and he was a really great stand-up. And then I saw Billy Crystal did that. He had there was a sitcom called Soap he was on,
Right.
and even before then, there was like Phil Silvers was a funny burlesque comedian who got a TV show in the 50s called, the Phil Silvers Show, or You'll Never Get Rich, or whatever it was called at the beginning. So I had seen that, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like, this will be, I think, a really smart strategy. Like, do this. And so it was a 2-track strategy from the get-go.
Right.
It wasn't just like, oh, I want to just be a comedian, and that's it. And I'm not even interested in acting or anything like that. And so I don't know if that affected my, like, how good a comedian I am or not, but my main focus was stand-up. My secondary was acting, and everything else was way lower.
Yeah, and obviously there are a ton of stand-ups who move into or shift into having an acting career. We've seen a ton of that, but not all of them are necessarily solid actors or gunning for being solid actors, but there are a ton who were. I mean, obviously, Robin Williams comes to mind. He studied it.
Of course.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Yeah.
And Michael Keaton was a stand-up.
I'm Batman.
Yep.
He started out in stand-up. He was a funny stand-up, and he's such a great actor.
Right, but he gave up stand-up pretty quickly.
He did.
He's a funny dude. I mean, there's no question about it. Well, no, the whole history of stand-up, is littered with comedians who, even look at Bill Burr today. He's on like that Star Wars show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Look, I'm just saying, we're all the same. Everybody's got their lines they don't cross until things get messy. If you can make it through your day and still sleep at night, you're doing better than most.
That's
Right.
it.
Yeah, and he was in Pete Davidson's movie.
Yeah.
So
King of Staten Island is the name of that movie. And then, he also has his own, he does voiceover for his own cartoon.
Hey, kids, you want to know what your grandpa did when I spilled a little bit of grape juice? You goddamn dope.
You called me a dope when I failed algebra.
Did not.
Yes, you did.
Silence! You gotta stop living in the past, Bill!
So it was like, I don't think it's a crazy, like, oh my God, Wayne figured out that stand-ups can also be actors. Like, it was just something I wanted to focus on. That's all.
Right, and I think it's interesting that you wanted to focus on it in an intense way, because I feel like studying under Stella Adler is a pretty big deal and more uncommon to do it the way you did it, and I appreciate that. And you've parlayed that into so many acting roles, so much stuff. I can't even scratch the surface when it comes to your TV credits. You're in so many classics. You appeared on X-Files.
So who the hell is this guy? This is Wayne Fetterman. He's an old buddy of mine from college. He's a writer out in Hollywood now, and he's working on an FBI-based movie.
It's actually as a writer/producer.
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Community, Doogie Howser, Comedy Bang Bang.
And finally rest. Rest in hell! Oh!
Living Single.
Love it. Multiple episodes of Living Single. Multiple episodes.
A famous episode of A Different World.
Yes.
About race.
I jumped at the chance to get in this suit, become another species. You make me ashamed. Ashamed to be a mammal.
That was a funny yes. That was a very, I was thrilled to be on that. Thrilled to be on. First of all, I thought that show was good.
I loved it. I grew up on it.
You did? Okay, yeah. So I thought that the writing on that show was really funny. And
And, of course, everyone knows you from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yep.
And you played Larry's brother on Larry Sanders' Show.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool. One of my all-time favorite shows. And again, this is just scratching the surface of what you've done. I've left out other huge things that you've done. But one thing I'm wondering about in regards to Larry Sanders Show is you were close with Garry Shandling, weren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, after that, yes. Yeah.
What sort of things did you learn from him? I mean, he's one of my all-time favorite stand-ups.
Well, I mean, so much. One was a lot. He was a lot about being emotionally authentic in the moment of stand-up,
Right.
as opposed to reciting the line and and this is the way it works and that's what it is.
Right.
Like, be a person up there. So that was tough for me to do, and he was just he wrote so much. He wrote way more than I'll ever write in my career. Just reams and reams of yellow pads of papers and ideas to get to these great jokes.
Wow.
So that was, and so those were two main things I really learned from him. To tell you the truth, this is the honest truth. The entire time I was friends with him and would hang out and go to premieres to, hang. It was always a little bit of a oh, this is Garry Shandling. It was never like, oh, this is somebody I came up with. I was always admired him, loved his stand up. So.
Did you play basketball with him too? I know you like basketball.
Yeah. I was part of that Sunday basketball game. So luckily I can play. I still play basketball. Still play, in my Chuck Taylors. Yeah. And I don't know. I just loved the guy. I just loved him so much.
Do you have are there any funny stories from those Sunday basketball games that you were involved with? Because I've heard some legendary stories from those. Like someone's nose got broken at one of them.
Yeah, so there was a guy. Yeah, there was.
It's like someone famous broke someone else's famous's nose or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there was one where Bob Costas was playing.
Oh, wow.
So I'm playing with Bob, and I don't know if you know this. I'm like I don't want to make this offensive, but I'm sort of a guard trapped in a forward's body. Like that's the way I go through life. Like I don't like being in the paint. I can't have my back to the basket. Mm-hmm. I just I'm a sniper. I'm an assassin shooter. That's basically my game. I play defense and rebound. Mm-hmm. That's it. So, of course, Costas, who's like, whatever, 5'5" or something.
Right.
He wants me to post
6'2".
up. Yeah. Oh, wow, Jesus. Do you know my PIN number also? This is creepy. This is creepy. So anyway, he kept going. He's like, "Get down, post up." I was like, "I don't want to post up." So we played. Costas was mad at me because I wouldn't post up, and then afterwards we played on Sunday. There was we would watch football. We'd watch the CBS and the NBC games or the Fox games, and so we're watching the game, and then Costas is making comments, and Garry turns to Costas and just goes like, "This is just too weird. Usually I hear your voice coming out of that TV, and now you're right next to me. Can you please shut up? I can't handle it."
Yeah,
it was really fun.
Was he like talking the way he would on the air?
No, it's the same voice. He's always the same. He doesn't have an announcer voice. He just, he's announced so many iconic moments in my life. Yeah, so that's just one of many, just many. But to tell you the truth, I should maybe start thinking about that game a little more because Garry was very protective of that game. He didn't want you talking about it. I know one guy talked about it on radio and he got kicked out of the game. He just wanted a very private, non-show business thing, even though sometimes it's like, oh my God, there's David Duchovny is playing. You know what I mean? It's like, so, but it was comedians like me. I wasn't a big time comedian or anything like that, for sure. So, I don't know. It's just a blast. It was just a blast.
Yeah, it sounds like anytime I hear about it, it just brings a smile to my face.
Do you play? Do you hoop it up?
Ooh, not in years. My brother and my cousin and I would play a lot more when we were much younger than we are now, and I just haven't I haven't shot around, but I live in New York, and whenever I go to the Village area of the Village, like right by Blue Note, there's that basketball court. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's
Talking about the 4th Street one in the cage?
yeah, I guess that is that one. I forget that it has a famous name and everyone knows it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anytime I go by there, there's a game playing, and I just love to just watch. I love to watch.
Yeah, those are fun games. Yeah.
Yeah, the most fun I have is that there's always one guy who's not that good, but he's trying to be the hero, and he's always trying to get the ball, and he's always ruining it for his team. I get a big kick out of that. We were talking TV, though. I was wondering what sort of lessons you've learned from those early days when you were first, doing LA Law or something that has taken you through to now when you make TV appearances. Are there things that you've learned and you've always kind of kept?
That's a good question. I would say this is advice I got reading Milton Berle's biography. And it's like, to be good in acting for me, and for, I don't know, this is just for me, is like the more these lines, I know them perfectly, the easier it is for me. Because otherwise, it's just, if I'm reaching for those lines, it can get really tough.
Okay.
So, and I've had a couple bad experiences where I'm like, I'm not quite getting these lines. So I'd really like to be comfortable. If I'm comfortable with the lines, then I feel I can at least have a chance of doing a reasonable performance. I know it sounds silly, but
no, that makes complete sense. I think
the
more you know it, the more it feels like it can be natural and can come out natural. Do you have a trick for learning lines?
No, over COVID, I actually spent $100 to take another class on it. Like, it's a lifetime struggle with me to really just have it. It's just not the way my brain works.
Right.
So my brain is very improvisational. It's very much like, what's happening now? How am I processing this?
Yeah.
And so it's tricky.
A lot of times for me when I've done stuff, not that I'm.
Yeah. Tell me.
I mean, this is
maybe I can learn from you. Let's do it.
I don't know about that. But for me, what you're saying about what's happening in the moment, that oftentimes leads me to remember lines. Because if someone says something, obviously people can memorize the lines and say, like, that's my cue line. But if you're, sometimes at least, if the script is really natural in how it's written, then that's really helpful for me, just because when someone says something and it feels a certain way, then the natural response is often the line. And so
it's those are the easiest lines to remember. When somebody cues you with something, you're like, asks you a question or challenges you, and those, no one has a problem. It's the lines where you have to drive it with a bunch of information that's like not related or technical jargon, and you have to just reel it off, as opposed to like, this is the way you speak all the time. That's when it gets, for me, a little tricky.
I see.
Yeah, no question. Oh, this is good.
Oh, yeah. So I imagine Curb Your Enthusiasm was one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is exactly how I like to act. Because isn't it true that there's not like a full script? It's more like beats and outlines?
100% true. Whatever you're saying, that is exactly right, which is why I think did my best work ever on television on that show. Because I'm like, this is it. I don't even have to think about it. I just kind of know where I'm going. And then I can react off to Larry, and it's just easy for me.
It's always been a dream of mine to meet Julie and Louis Dreyfus. And if you could just make a phone call and make that happen, that would be so great.
I'm more than happy to call her up. I can't guarantee.
It's so hard to get anything absolutely guaranteed. Exactly. It's like you want to get something buried.
No.
You don't even know if that's impossible because there's a lot of papers to be signed.
But I do know there were actors that on that show were just like, can you just tell me what to say? Because I can't really do this.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can see a lot of actors who they're scared of improv or they're scared of storytelling. because they don't want to reveal too much. And they also just may not feel like they're funny. And so they can easily think, oh, well, if I don't want to be off the cuff here and say something that's unfunny or going to get me in trouble because I'm trying too hard. So I can see that with some actors, but
Right.
it sounds like it would be a very natural thing.
No, that's so funny you pulled that out. No question. Yeah.
I love that he broke your glasses from the hug. And he was like, well, you didn't break the glasses, but you initiated the hug. Which broke the glasses.
Sorry about your glasses.
Don't worry about it. I'll send you a bill.
You what? You'll send me a bill?
Yeah. These are, I don't think these can be fixed.
Wait a second.
Yeah, just for the glasses.
Why?
Because they're like $219.
I didn't break your glasses.
It was the hug that broke them. It wasn't you specifically,
Yeah,
but
okay,
you were the
yeah.
one who instigated the hug.
I came in for a shake, and then I saw you make a move for the hug.
I kind of remember I said the hey. I think you're mistaking my hey for a hug.
Such a funny direction to go with that. And I actually do. I think it resonates with me because I always worry about my glasses getting broken when I hug someone.
Okay.
On sunglasses or something, and I'm inside and I put them on my shirt, and then someone wants to give me a big hug. I'm like,
Right.
oh, you're breaking my glasses right now. But only Larry David would write someone actually pointing that out.
Well, this is the point. Like, all of that is from my imagination.
Oh, yes, that's right, because that was your line. You were the one who had the glasses broken. So
Right. So, and here was what was interesting about that scene, if you don't mind, real quickly, was like, I was like, how am I going to he was like, here's the thing. We're going to hug. The glasses are going to be broken, and you're going to ask me to pay for the glasses. I was like, all right, how am I going to do this that sounds reasonable, right? To this guy, anyway. Like, so I kind of came up with it, like just thinking about it when I was getting makeup on and stuff. And I came up to him before. I go, I think I know the angle. And he's like, don't tell me until the cameras are rolling. Because he wanted an honest reaction to that. So he didn't want to hear any of it before the cameras were rolling.
Did you take improv classes? Did you study?
I did a little bit. And I was in an improv company when I did stand up in New York at the comic strip, we had a Monday night improv group, and it was really fun. And this was just crazy coincidence. At the time, Robin Williams, you had just mentioned him earlier, was shooting a movie in New York called Moscow on the Hudson.
Yeah.
About a guy who wants to defect.
And he's Russian, right? He's playing a Russian.
Right, he plays a Russian guy. So he would come in and play with our improv group every Monday night for or every other Monday night, or whenever he was free. So it was like, oh my God. And they're like, you can't even keep up with that guy. That's a whole different level of it. But it was really, really, really fun. So yeah, but I never, I wish there was like UCB was around, because I really like what they did and taught, and I bought their manual. That's another recommendation. Buy that manual.
Yeah.
Can't get it discounted. Can't get it on Kindle.
Yep. You're also in a number of movies. You have just like your television credits, you have so many movie credits, a ton of Adam McKay, Judd Apatow projects.
Yep.
How did your relationship with them develop? Did you meet them working in the industry and then get in something? Like, how did you end up in a lot of their things?
Well, remember what I said, or what did I say earlier? Like, Stella Adler wasn't the most important person, but when I moved to California, literally the first person I met was Judd Apatow standing outside the Laugh Factory on Sunset Boulevard. And he knew me already from my stand-up work.
Because he was such a nerd.
Yes, exactly.
School. He had a high school radio show where he was just interviewing Garry Shandling and Jerry Seinfeld and Jay Leno. And he has talked a lot about watching a bunch of talk shows and would be seeing people like you.
Right. I mean, I had not done the Tonight Show or anything, but I had a little bit of a reputation. So he was a freshman at USC. and was already, the classic Judd, was already booking comedy nights at USC as a freshman. So he booked me on a comedy night, and we just remained friends. We wrote together a little bit, and we just remained friends all these years. And so some of those things he would just, I wouldn't even have to audition for.
Wow.
And then, and so people would see me in those movies, and then McKay was like, "Hey, you could be the blind guy in this movie," or something like that.
Oh, cool.
Is that your wife, Nancy?
Right here, Don.
Can I come over this afternoon and touch your face? Heel, Cinnamon. Heel, Cinnamon.
Yeah.
And so then,
but they were never huge parts. Never huge parts. They're always the little Fetterman and out, I like to call them. Yeah.
Yeah, but those are, you called it that on Crashing.
You're in one of my favorite scenes in Curb. Legally Blonde.
I made a career out of being in one scene in a movie and then never seeing me again.
I guess you're right?
Yeah, one scene and out. I call it the Fetterman and out.
Yeah.
When you did that.
Oh, you do know okay, Jesus.
I am also a nerd about comedy, just like Judd Apatow. I know one of the things that is in Judd Apatow's 40-Year-Old Virgin that I've also heard you sort of make a joke about is hatred of Steely Dan.
Okay, guys. First of all, it's not in 40-Year-Old Virgin. It's in Knocked Up. Then he makes the joke.
Yes, yeah. No, yeah.
Get it right.
Wait a second. No, but in 40-Year-Old Virgin,
wait.
Seth Rogen and Paul Rudd are playing video games. And isn't it in that one where they say, like, Steely Dan gargles my balls or something like that? Isn't that in?
Oh, he does. So maybe he does it twice.
Okay.
All right. I stand corrected.
I forgot it was in Knocked Up, but yeah.
Jason, yeah.
Take this Michael McDonald DVD that you've been playing for 2 years straight off. I'm going to kill everyone in the store.
David, what do you suggest we play?
I don't care. Anything. I would rather listen to Fran Drescher for 8 hours. Nothing against him, but if I hear Yamo Be There one more time, I'm going to Yamo burn this place to the ground.
Steely Dan would never even have a chance.
Well, maybe it's because Steely Dan gargles my balls.
Yeah.
Have you shared a dislike of the band? How did
This is the thing is, like, first of all, Judd loves Steely Dan.
Okay. That
loves
was them giving him a hard time. Okay.
Yeah. Judd loves Steely Dan. I appreciate Steely Dan, but don't love them. But I like making fun of sort of Steely Dan fans. They tend to be a specific kind of person who's a little more like intellectual when it comes to their music.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to like I'm a Led Zeppelin guy. So it's like I like, the people's music. And they're like, you don't understand the dominant seventh chords that they're using. I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to understand Steely. And I don't know if you know, Steely Dan is named after a dildo. The whole thing is
dildo. It's such a weird...
the whole thing is so. I find anyway. I don't hate them. Okay. I appreciate them, but I like making fun of them because their fans go berserk.
I don't dislike them. I can't say that I hate them. I also just like to make fun of my best friend of the show, Rob. He loves them, and he's always trying to talk about them. And we're always like, man, they gargle my balls. Like we just give him we love to give him a hard time. And he's losing it listening to this conversation.
I think there's another line that Seth Rogen says something like, you could, that's so funny. Yeah, I'd rather have my throat slit by an Al Jarreau album or some great reference than listen to Steely Dan.
If I ever listen to Steely Dan, I want you to slice my head off with an Al Jarreau LP.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I got to watch this again.
Yeah. That's a that's a deep dive. No one's ever asked me about that. Very good, Jay.
That's what
very
I'm going
good.
For here.
Nice work, Jason.
So your experience with comedy and stand-up, they're writing side by side. I mean, that was always, you wanted the two tracks. And you did mention earlier, you don't know necessarily how your Stella Adler training necessarily helped your stand-up or your comedy, but do you feel that your comedy and stand-up has helped how you perform as an actor?
Yeah, I think just being on stage that much gives you a certain confidence when you're on a set. I know it's slightly different, but it's still like, boom, you're on. Everyone quiet, you go. That feeling I've had years and years and years of like, oh, I'm walking up on stage. It's now my turn to talk. So I think I'm a little more comfortable than your average maybe actor would be. Yes, so I do think, but not that much. Like, I don't know. I mean, I could talk a lot about like what is good acting, and I think a lot of it is being comfortable, like just so it's like you're open to whatever the scene is.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Is this I especially like the confidence it brings you on set. I have done improv for a while, and there are some commercials I've done where they want you to improvise, and I wouldn't have been able to do it had I not had that training. And it does give you a certain confidence on stage. Let's talk about your work with Don Rickles, because you did Dinner with Don, and Don Rickles, I was just talking about him yesterday, actually, about how there's something about Don Rickles that, even though he was doing insult comedy, insulting people in the audience and using a lot of, I'm sure there's somebody who I think wrongly says that Don Rickles wouldn't be able to work today in this woke culture and everything, but people were conscious of right and wrong and racism and bigotry of all kinds when he was famous, and everyone loved him, regardless of who they were, regardless of their background. And I think it's because he has, in his just deliverability and his delivery system, just something innate about him that made him feel like your buddy who's just teasing you.
Right.
I don't know how he did that, though.
Well, he was a very unique guy, and a lot of it was, there was an improvisational aspect to it that also delighted people, like how fast he was, and I don't know. I mean, I disagree with you. There were people that didn't like Don Rickles when I was growing up because they thought he was dealing in racial stereotypes, and he actually got in a little trouble when he did comic relief for doing that. So
God bless. There's a new thing called dress up.
Thank you.
I mean, we worry about the homeless, but you're a Jew derelict. Black or white, we're all working for the same cause. To find you work. Dressed as a Jew in safari. Anyway, I've never met an ape.
Never met an ape.
Thank you. Go get it. Now, I'll tell you this. Boo your ass. I didn't ask you in here.
it wasn't completely. Yeah. It wasn't all smooth sailing for him.
Oh,
and
because I've just seen so many different people. I remember Denzel Washington talking about how much he loved them.
Most people got that he was making fun of it all. It was just like there's the black guy, the Japanese guy. I mean, he would go. So it was. I don't know. I mean, he just had a unique. I think underneath it all was just like you knew he was just trying to have fun and be the funniest guy in the room. Like I think everyone got that. Excuse me, but for the most part, if you think of Rickles, he would be on the Tonight Show, so he'd make fun of Johnny, and so when Johnny was laughing, you're like, oh, okay, he's making fun of Johnny being rich, being divorced, being from Nebraska, not taking care of his parents, whatever the jokes were, he would go there, and Carson loved it.
Don't you just hope we get to be that age?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm not. Well, you will, because you have nothing on your mind. We all have responsibilities and family. You got $6 million to sit out the beach and go, another beer, Mary! She wasn't at the affair last night. I hear the jewelry tarnished and she couldn't show up.
So I think that also gave him like leeway. Other people are like, oh, I see. You just have to not enjoy it. You just have to enjoy. But I loved, God, that was such a ridiculous job to work on that show. That's the last thing he ever did.
It was. I do recall it was before his passing. And,
we were actually going to do other shows, and when he passed, like there was other things on the book. booked.
Wow,
So it was, yeah. But one couple of my favorites was the Snoop Dogg. Did you ever see the Snoop Dogg episode?
No.
Oh, it's on YouTube. You got to check it out because there's Snoop's into him because, Rickles was like into old boxers and Snoop's into boxers. So that.
And people love to compare me and you and say that you hung out with the wise guys and I hung out with sort of tough guys. I don't think there was a difference between those guys and regular guys.
Every one of them, I always had a good time with.
And then at one point, Snoop plays like his big hit, like either Gin and Juice or Snoop Dogg. I don't even know what that song is called. Snoop Doggy Dogg.
What's my name?
What's my name? Yeah. That's it. So he was playing it, and with his headphones, and they were sharing like earbuds.
It's kind of hard being Snoop Deagle Double G, but you hear that, Don?
No, I'm deaf.
It was just incredible.
Oh, wow.
And then, so it was just beautiful. I wish Don was a little healthier when we did that show.
Yeah.
Just a little, he was a little struggling. He was struggling a little.
Right. I've always just heard he was the sweetest man. And he was just like a sweet, sweet, kind man, to the point where it's like a night and day difference between.
Well, this is my point. I disagree with you. I know he, the merchant of venom and all of that stuff, but I think even when he was doing that, you could see that he was a nice guy.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think that's the only way you could have gotten away with it.
Oh, absolutely.
But talk to when you talk to Kevin Hart, when you have Kevin Hart on your show, he has a very different experience with the Rickles. So
really,
yeah. I don't want to paraphrase Kevin, but let me just say it's not as positive as mine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have not heard that. I just heard. I remember hearing Bob Newhart's story about when his wife met him, and she was Bob Newhart was like, look, he is going to be he's going to go in and be very blue. And Bob Newhart's wife was like, him? He was so sweet.
Right.
And kind. It was like, yeah.
Well, here's the thing is, he never worked blue. He never said the F word on stage. Never any of that stuff. So he was just racial. He was just racial and religious. Yeah.
Relentless in that. And that's, yeah.
He was relentlessly racial. Yeah.
Yeah. How long did you know him before you worked on that?
I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him. I mean, I saw him numerous times on stage. Met him once, but just like after a show, there's no way he would have known me. And that was it. No, not part of his world at all.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize. I assumed maybe you got in on that show because
I know that would have been nice. No, it wasn't it wasn't a Garry Shandling situation.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. You also, in other ways, you've been behind the scenes. You've been a writer. You've done a ton of writing work, and I have to give a shout out to Cheap Seats with Ron Parker. You worked on that a little bit. I love that show.
The capital of the United States is the bonfire of the vanities. That is wrong.
The world's wrongest man.
Stay out of the moment. Always try to stay in your head and come from a place of fear.
I thought it was a ridiculous show. So funny. I mean, it's basically, for those who don't know, it's like a sports clip show that's comedy. It's sort of like the Daily Show or The Soup were about sports. So that's
right.
That's the angle there. I just thought it was a great show. The Sklar brothers hosted it. But you've done a ton of writing. You were the head monologue writer for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon that first year.
Yeah.
And why just that 1 year? Were you brought on just to sort of help the show get its legs?
I was brought on to launch the show. And again, I had never worked on a staff or anything like that, but I was performing with Jimmy Fallon. Another example of performing with Jimmy. He was actually opening for me, and he was getting ready to do the show. So we wrote new stand-up material for him. And then he was like, do you want to help me on this show? I was like, well, this was not my stand-up career. This was not my acting career. Those are the two things. I was like, maybe this door's opening for me a little bit. So I moved to New York and we launched the show successfully. And I would say, this is the honest truth, I was excellent at that job for about 6 months. And then I got burnt out pretty quickly. And and I would say I was good at the job for the other 6 months.
Okay.
And then after a year, they were like, that's enough. Thanks, Wayne. I was like, okay, I get it. But yeah, no, it was a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't have traded for anything, but I don't like getting up in the morning and writing jokes at 9 a.m. Like that's not my deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different kind of animal. I've heard that.
Yes.
It's such a big machine. And like working on a late night show.
Yeah, that's not quite, it's just not my rhythm and how I like to create, but I was so honored that he wanted me, and I've done this, the Tonight Show, and he keeps having me back, and so it's great.
Something crazy happened during the pandemic to me. I had my identity stolen.
No.
No, it actually was one of the best things that happened to me, because I go through life and I wonder, do I matter? And then one day I wake up and someone's like, hey, I want to be you, Wayne.
You're one of my favorite comedians that I've ever seen, ever, and I'm just so honored and lucky that I got to hang out with you.
Ah, that's incredible. I love the way the audience burst into spontaneous applause when you said that. That was...
Yeah.
But, no, and it was fun. It was a fun writing room. Jesselnick was in that room.
Yeah, and Morgan Murphy.
Yeah. So you know.
Yeah. What
you know everything about me. You probably know my pay stubs from that week. It's a little creepy how much you know.
I mean, I disregarded some of that information.
Yeah, okay.
I feel like a lot of people get Fallon wrong because I think he's super talented. I think he's great.
Yeah.
What do people get wrong? What is it people are missing? Because they'll kind of roll their eyes at him, but I'll hear people like you or Mark Maron or Bashir, who also worked at late night.
Oh, yeah.
Talk
Bashir
about how
and,
much of a genius he was.
Bashir and Diallo were, yeah, I met those guys there. I don't know. I just like, I don't know. I just think he's couldn't be more talented. I mean, he can do regular show, he can do act outs, he can do impressions, he can sing. He's super charming. He's maybe he's a little too effervescent, and for television, I mean, I'm just trying to. I don't know. He's doing fine. He gets a lot of people tune into that show.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
He's doing fine.
I wonder why there are people who roll their eyes at him. And
look, people don't like Colbert for certain reasons. Yes, people don't.
There's no one who everyone likes, but I'm always
not since Carson. Not since Carson. There's been no one.
Yeah,
that's
true. You've also written for a lot of award shows. You wrote when Fallon did the Golden Globes. Did you also do when he hosted the Emmys?
No, just the Golden Globes. But I've done a number of those, and mainly just writing that stupid stuff where two actors walk on stage and have to pretend to be funny. But I've had some great moments of writing for the highlight was writing for Mel Brooks, obviously. That was incredible.
Yeah. I imagine there's a lot of overlap with writing for a late night show and writing for or a variety show and writing for an award show, because there's a lot of same sort of skills are trying to be used.
A little bit. Monologue jokes are slightly different than those kind of jokes. And another one I loved, I wrote a bit for Key and Peele. And I sent it to them, and they loved it. They're like, oh, this is like an old school comedy team. I love it. So, and of course, they punched it up and made it way better, of course, because they're geniuses, those guys. But that was another highlight as well for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you're now teaching stand-up history and performance at USC. And for my friends back home in South Carolina, that's not
University of South Carolina.
USC.
Where's USC in South Carolina? What campus? Where is that? Columbia. Okay.
But this is the Southern California USC, which is what USC is outside of the Carolinas.
Right.
But you're also like the go-to historian for comedy.
I'm one of. There's a few of us, but I like to be one of them. Yeah.
Because you have been on CNN, both of CNN's docuseries. There's one that's out now. That's the story of a late night. It's sort of like we were talking before. You were just really into this stuff when you were young, when you were in high school. So you're drawing on all of that information, I imagine, but also what you've continued to study since then.
Right. Yeah. Well, it was, this is going to sound embarrassing, but like I knew all of that stuff from when I was a kid. And then I've just been kicking around stand-up for so long. Like, so much history has happened in my lifetime of stand-up. Like, there was no alternative stand-up, a scene like that when I started. The clubs were just kind of getting going when I started. So it was like a lot has changed. And obviously, the internet is the hugest change to it all.
Right.
What's happening right now between me and you, Jason.
Right.
Jason and Wayne. Right now, this is all internet comedy. So I was eyewitness to a lot of it.
And
which
you
is
parlayed that into a book, The History of Stand-Up.
You make it sound like it's a money grab or something.
No,
it was
I'm sorry.
It's a passion project.
It is. That's what I was going to say. It's a labor of love that.
No question. No question. Yeah. The History of Stand-Up from Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle, I call it.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. And I'm just super excited about this book being out there for people to read. I know there are a couple of options for people to read about maybe the history of, or videos maybe to see about the history of improv. But
right,
I really am jazzed about it. There was some article that I read that was about, I guess, the years of stand-up when Rodney Dangerfield was just writing jokes for people while he was selling like aluminum siding or something like that. It was a very interesting read, but this book is going to cover so much more than just that era.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, almost every page of this book, and it's not that long, it's like 150 pages, it's a very easy read, could be a book in itself. Like, just this morning, before I spoke to you, I was reading a book on Eddie Cantor. I wrote 2 paragraphs about that guy, and there's a 420-page book in my bedroom right now that I'm reading about him. So, so same with Dangerfield, same with Carson, same with Letterman, same with any, obviously there's been dozens of books written about Richard Pryor.
Right.
And so it's just like I wanted to kind of contextualize the story. And then if you're like, oh, you know what, I'm really interested in Bob Hope radio years, then you have to go and do your own, because there's just so much of it.
And do you think you'll ever do, like you were mentioning, you were reading the Eddie Cantor book. Your book came out earlier this year.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll do another edition of it that'll add any information maybe about it?
Well, there's another, like I said, there's another guy named Rich Scheidner, and he does a traveling show called The History of Stand-Up, America's Funhouse Mirror, or so. Look, anyway, he does this show where he kind of covers what I cover a little in the book. And we've talked about, like, collaborating, but it would be like that's like a 8-year project, to really go from the very beginning right through, and I keep, right through today. That would be just thousands of pages.
Right.
So that would be like a real, like, academic. It would be great because we're both, I think, well, I'll speak for Rich. Rich is a very fun writer. So I think we could do it, but that would take years to write.
Yeah. Does the history of stand-up, I imagine in your class that you're teaching, the history, since it's also about performance, are you showing in the class, like teaching how to structure jokes through going through the history of stand-up?
Not really. Because to tell you the truth, most of my students are born after the year 2000. They're born. So they went to high school in like 2018 or something like that. They're still in high school. So they don't care. They don't care about any of this stuff. They're like, oh, I like John Mulaney. So we'll talk about what he does.
Okay.
Right at the beginning, I talk about what comedians do you like and why, and then we'll break down those comedians. We do comedian breakdowns on that stuff. But it's only comedians they like. It's not...
Okay.
it's not going to be comedians I think they should like or it's important. None. That's just bad teaching. That would be bad teaching.
Okay.
But if somebody comes in as like, oh my God, I love, like last semester, there was a kid who loves this comedian named James Castor, who's from England, who did that crazy Netflix. Yeah. So I didn't know much about James. So I'm learning too. Like, so it's great for me as opposed to, here, take a look at Phyllis Diller or Joan Rivers. You know, it's stupid.
I see.
So, yeah. So we learned, I mean, there's some overlap of like, oh, this is the kind of comedian I like. But yeah, we watch them do a bit and then we'll do I call a stand-up breakdown, which is like, what are they doing? Are they doing first person? Are they doing a character? Are they doing an act out? Are they going back and forth? Are they using exaggeration? Are they using, let's talk about their timing. Let's talk about what they're wearing. Let's talk about how they're holding the microphone. Like, you can learn any of that from any comedian.
Yeah. So
it's like, it's really fun. We have the class sells well. Like it always, it always sells out. It's just great. We have a really fun time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really great. Do they get to do like a showcase?
Yeah, at the end. Yeah. We used to do it at the Improv. I think we're going to keep it all at USC, just protocol and all of that kind of stuff.
No, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put that book in my Amazon cart.
Yes.
I'm gonna get that. I'm really looking forward to it.
Please, you have my email. Tell me what you think. If I'm missing anybody.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You would know this. Weren't there a couple of comedy networks in the late 80s?
Briefly,
that merged and then kind of became Comedy Central?
Yeah, there was something called the Comedy Channel and Ha were two separate networks. They merged to become Comedy Central.
Okay.
It's in the book. It's in the book, guys.
Good.
Anyone cares about what happened in 1989 and 90.
I do, because that was when I got really into stand-up.
Right.
Was like seeing Ha, and then when I moved to South Carolina, and I think it was Comedy Channel that I could get a hold of there, and then Comedy Central, and I would always watch those clip shows where they were filming people's sets and just showing a joke of a stand-up.
That was called, I know the show you're talking about. That is called Stand Up, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're at the end. Unfortunately, I could talk to you forever because I love hearing what you have to say.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. But it's time now to create something together. And I'm trying to think there's so many different avenues I think we could go with in creating something together. It could be either writing for a late night show, like how someone could, or maybe sort of structure you take in writing a monologue joke, or maybe even the sort of approach you take to writing for an award show. I've never heard anyone explain how to do that, and I kind of would be interested in how people can.
Okay, this is the way we do it. Well, first of all, there's a board where you mix and match, and we think, okay, this actor might be good with this one, or these are two actors from the same show, they have to be on together. And then I like to base it kind of in the category. So let's say the category is best supporting actor. Then you're like, I'm out here, we're here to present the award for best supporting actor. And even right now, I feel like I'm supporting you by giving you the final line in this, and then they'll go back and forth. You know what I mean? So we'll like kind of base it off of that stuff. And like if they know each other, then we do stuff back and forth like that. If they don't, then it's much more difficult.
Yeah, I bet.
And here's the crazy thing, and is that script then goes out to not only the actors, but also their representatives.
Yeah, and that's probably.
And a lot of these actors have publicists, so they're like, "Can my actress Cecilia say?" And the winner is. I'd rather have her say that than this funny line, so because that's the moment they want to read the winner.
Oh yeah, they want to get their client
to read the winner more than to get the laugh. It's really interesting.
That is interesting.
So a lot of times we try to have them do 2 categories so they can flip, so they don't get all upset about it.
Oh, interesting. That's why that happens. That's why they do that. I didn't know that. Oh, okay, cool. I just watched one the other day that was Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart. And I imagine when it's 2 people who know each other who are also comedians, they will work with you on it, right?
Yes, those are the best. Those are the best where I send them something, they send me something. Like what I did with Key and Peele. I sent them something. They're like, this is great. This is a great thing. Here's some notes. I would incorporate them. I'd send it back. They're like, thing. And then right before they read it at a teleprompter rehearsal. Like they're in their tuxedos. They're ready to go. And we read it through and they're like, I want to change that word. I want to flip that around. So we do it right there in teleprompter. So when they go out, it's fresh.
When you incorporate notes, do you ever... Because I whenever I've written something or done an improv class, whenever someone gives me a note, I always feel bad, like, oh, I should have known that, or I should have been better. When getting, I know exactly, it's a ridiculous thing that I do. It's something whoever is speaking such negative self-talk needs to get out. They need to stop having rent in my head, but. That's probably the best advice you can say is that. But when you are getting notes,
like I want notes. I want them. I want to hear what somebody's saying.
Yeah. And then when you try to incorporate it, it's almost
right. And if I think the person what they're saying is wrong, I'll say, that's not right. The way I always couch it, I go, that's not right for me. That's not right for me. Because then they can't argue. It's like, it's not like, oh, not that this isn't funny. It's like, that's not right for me. Yeah. So, but for the most part, I'm like, let me try it that way. Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too selfish with your time.
Thank you.
I'll call it there. There it is. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciated this.
Jason, thank you for reaching out. So nice meeting you.
What a thrill it was to have him on. Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. And a big thank you to Sari Karplus, previous guest, because she's the one who connected us. I really appreciate that. Why don't you get his book, The History of Stand-Up from Mark Twain to Dave Chappelle. I got it on Amazon. I'm really enjoying the read. You should pick one up too. And also follow him on Twitter at Fetterman. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at There It Is Pod, and follow our YouTube at There It Is. Also subscribe to our Comedy Lifestyle newsletter and support us if you can. We have a Patreon and a PayPal. Go to thereitispod.com for newsletter and support info. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.